Imagine a quiet evening in a small town, where everything seemed peaceful and ordinary. But in the dead of night, a group of dogs began acting strangely, their barking piercing the silence as they frantically dug into the earth. At first, it seemed like nothing more than unusual behavior, but their determination was unshakable, their paws tearing through the soil with purpose. As onlookers gathered in confusion, the dogs unearthed something no one expected: a worn, dirt-covered coffin hidden beneath the surface. The air grew heavy with tension as the lid was carefully lifted, and what was revealed inside left everyone utterly speechless. This was no ordinary discovery. It was a moment that would change lives and uncover a mystery no one could have imagined. In a small, quiet town surrounded by rolling hills and dense woods, life moved at a slow and peaceful pace. Everyone knew each other, and the days were marked by routines that rarely changed. It was in this unassuming place that the extraordinary would soon unfold. The story begins at the edge of town, where a family of dogs lived with their owner on a small farm. These dogs were more than pets. They were companions, always loyal, always vigilant. Known for their playful yet sharp instincts, they were the kind of animals everyone in the town admired. On a particular evening, just as the sun dipped below the horizon and the sky turned a soft shade of gray, the dogs began behaving unusually. They gathered near the old graveyard on the outskirts of the farm, their noses pressed to the ground, sniffing with an intensity that couldn't be ignored. Their owner, curious but unsure of what was happening, watched as they began digging. At first, it seemed like a simple reaction to a buried animal or some forgotten scent, but their focus and coordination told a different story. The graveyard itself was an eerie place. Overgrown weeds spilled over the worn, tilted gravestones, many of which bore inscriptions too weathered to read. It was a place most avoided unless necessary, a resting ground steeped in silence and solitude. But on this night, it became the center of something remarkable. As the dogs dug deeper, their energy grew more frantic, as if they were on the brink of uncovering something important. Nearby, the owner called out to them, attempting to pull them away, but the animals refused to budge. Neighbors, hearing the commotion, began to gather, their curiosity piqued. Flashlights cut through the darkness as the group watched the dogs unearth something buried beneath the soil. Bit by bit, the outline of a wooden coffin emerged, its surface stained with age. The graveyard, once silent, now buzzed with whispered questions. Whose coffin was this? Why was it buried so shallow? And why were the dogs so intent on finding it? It was a moment that brought both fear and intrigue, setting the stage for a revelation that no one could have anticipated. The dogs worked tirelessly, their paws clawing through the dirt with a strange sense of urgency. By now, the crowd that had gathered around the graveyard was growing, their faces illuminated by flashlights and the soft glow of a distant street lamp. The night air was filled with a mix of tension and curiosity, the murmurs of onlookers growing louder as the outline of the buried coffin became more defined. No one could understand how or why the dogs had discovered it, but one thing was clear: they weren't stopping until it was fully unearthed. As the final layers of soil were brushed away, the coffin was revealed in its entirety. Its wood was old, cracked in places, and covered in dirt, giving the impression that it had been buried there for years, maybe even decades. A chill ran through the crowd as they took in the sight. Questions filled the air. Whose coffin was this? Why was it here? And why hadn't anyone in the town known about it before? The dogs, now sitting quietly near the edge of the pit, seemed to sense their work was done. They watched intently as a few brave individuals stepped forward, their hands trembling as they prepared to open the lid. The air felt heavier with each passing second, as if the earth itself was holding its breath. Slowly, the rusted hinges creaked as the coffin was pried open, revealing its contents. The moment the lid was lifted, gasps erupted from the crowd. Inside was something no one could have predicted: something that defied explanation and sent waves of shock through everyone present. Some turned away, unable to process what they were seeing, while others leaned closer, trying to make sense of the discovery. It wasn't just what was inside the coffin that was shocking, it was the questions it raised about how it got there and why it was found in such a mysterious way. The scene was overwhelming, and for a moment, no one spoke, their minds racing to piece together the puzzle that had just been unearthed. As the lid of the coffin was fully lifted, the light of the flashlights revealed what lay inside, and it was nothing anyone could have expected. There, carefully arranged, was a collection of objects that seemed both ordinary and deeply out of place. Among them were old, tattered photographs, a locket still glinting faintly despite the dirt, and a stack of handwritten letters tied with a faded ribbon. But the most striking find was what lay beneath these items: a small, perfectly preserved journal, its leather cover etched with initials that no one recognized. The crowd fell silent, the weight of the discovery pressing down on everyone. This wasn't just a random burial, it was personal, deliberate, and filled with meaning. Some whispered theories to one another. Was this a time capsule left behind by someone long ago? Or was it the resting place of secrets someone wanted to keep hidden forever? The journal, now carefully removed and held in trembling hands, seemed to hold the key to the mystery. As a few pages were flipped open, the handwriting inside told a story. A life captured in ink, its words spilling secrets that had been buried for decades. Names, dates, and emotional confessions leaped from the pages. It spoke of love, loss, and betrayal, weaving a narrative that connected the items in the coffin to a time long past. The crowd listened in stunned silence as fragments of the story were read aloud, each detail more shocking than the last. But then came the most unexpected twist of all. Buried beneath the journal was another layer, something heavier. Carefully removing the remaining objects, the crowd discovered a delicate yet unmistakable human skeletal fragment. The air turned cold as people began to realize the gravity of what they were seeing. This wasn't just a collection of memories. It was a grave with a story that was both heartbreaking and chilling. The dogs, sitting quietly in the background, seemed calm now, as if they had fulfilled their purpose. The humans, however, were left with more questions than answers. Who had buried this? Why were these specific items chosen? And what had drawn the dogs to this spot? The discovery wasn't just shocking. It was deeply unsettling, leaving everyone to wonder what other secrets might still lie beneath the surface. The discovery of the coffin and its shocking contents sparked an immediate investigation. As word spread through the small town, authorities and experts were called in to piece together the mystery. The journal became the central focus, its pages filled with cryptic entries that hinted at a story of heartbreak and secrecy. Each passage uncovered new clues: names of people no one recognized, descriptions of events that seemed out of place, and locations that begged to be revisited. Historians and forensic specialists worked together, poring over the artifacts. The photographs were old, faded, but not beyond identification. One image showed a young couple standing in front of a grand house that no longer existed in the town. Another depicted a group of people at what looked like a celebration, their faces marked by both joy and something more haunting. The letters, when carefully unfolded, revealed declarations of love, promises made in desperation, and hints of a betrayal that seemed to have shattered lives. But it was the skeletal fragment that brought the deepest sense of unease. Forensic analysis suggested that it belonged to a woman who had likely died decades ago. Who was she? Why had her remains been buried alongside these personal treasures? And what connection did she have to the people mentioned in the journal and letters? The questions grew more complex as the investigation deepened, each answer leading to new mysteries. What puzzled everyone most, however, was how the dogs had known to dig there. Animal behaviorists were brought in to provide insight. They explained that dogs have an incredible sense of smell, able to detect even the faintest scents buried deep underground. But why they chose that specific grave on that specific night remained a mystery. Some believed it was a coincidence, while others were convinced there was something more. An instinct, an unexplainable connection to the truth buried below. As the investigation progressed, the story began to take shape. It was a tale of love and loss, of secrets buried in both the literal and emotional sense. The artifacts in the coffin painted a picture of a life filled with passion, but also with tragedy. The deeper authorities delved, the more they uncovered a hidden chapter of the town's history, one that had been forgotten, until the dogs brought it to light. The discovery of the coffin and its contents left the town forever changed. As the investigation concluded, the story that emerged was both heartbreaking and remarkable. The journal revealed the life of a woman who had lived in the town decades ago, a life filled with love, betrayal, and a tragic end. She had fallen in love with someone forbidden, a secret relationship that sparked scandal and ultimately led to her disappearance. The letters were her desperate attempts to hold on to that love, and the items in the coffin were tokens of a life cut short, a life hidden from the world. As the truth came to light, it became clear that the grave had been an act of love and sorrow. Someone close to her had buried these items as a way to preserve her memory, creating a private resting place far from the judgment of the world. The skeletal fragment was identified as hers, confirming the tragic ending that many had feared but never spoken of. For the town, the story was more than a revelation of the past. It was a moment of reckoning. Older residents began to recall whispers of the woman's name, fragments of stories passed down but never fully understood. Families who had lived there for generations found themselves piecing together parts of their own history. The town's collective memory had been revived, bringing with it a mix of sadness, closure, and a newfound appreciation for the lives that had shaped its past. The dogs, hailed as heroes, became a symbol of loyalty and intuition. Their actions reminded everyone of the unique bond between humans and animals, a bond that often defies explanation. It was as though they had been guided by something greater, something beyond mere instinct, to bring this story to the surface. The graveyard, once a place of silence and neglect, became a space of reflection and remembrance. A small plaque was placed near the site, commemorating the woman and the story her grave had unearthed. Visitors began to come, not out of morbid curiosity, but to honor the memory of someone whose life, though tragic, had touched so many in its rediscovery. In the end, the discovery was not just about what lay inside the coffin. It was about the way it brought people together, connecting them through a shared history and a story that reminded everyone of the power of love, memory, and the unbreakable bond between humans and their canine companions. The story of the dogs, the grave, and the shocking discovery left an indelible mark on everyone who heard it. It wasn't just a mystery unraveled, it was a reminder of how interconnected we all are, humans and animals alike. The discovery revealed secrets that had been buried for decades, but it also brought a sense of closure and understanding to a town that had unknowingly carried the weight of a forgotten tragedy. For the people who gathered that night, the experience was unforgettable. Many of them spoke of how it changed their perspective, not just on the past, but on the present. They saw the graveyard in a new light, not as a place of death, but as a keeper of stories, a space where memories live on in silence. The dogs, whose instincts had led to the discovery, were celebrated as heroes, their role in uncovering the truth regarded as nothing short of miraculous. As word of the event spread beyond the town, it resonated with people from all walks of life: animal lovers, historians, and those simply drawn to incredible stories were captivated by the tale. It sparked conversations about the bond between humans and animals, about the power of intuition, and about the ways in which the past can find its way back to us when we least expect it. For the owner of the dogs, the experience was deeply personal. Reflecting on the night, they spoke of how their companions seemed to sense something no human could, a pull toward a truth that needed to be revealed. It was a bond they had always cherished, But now it felt even more profound, as though the dogs had not only been protectors, but also guardians of the town's history. The town itself became a point of interest, drawing visitors curious about the story and eager to see the site of the discovery. The small plaque placed at the graveyard grew into something more, a memorial where flowers and notes were left by those who had been touched by the story. It became a place of quiet reflection, a reminder of love, loss, and the extraordinary ways in which the past can reach out to us. As the video comes to a close, one truth lingers. This story is about more than a coffin, a grave, or even the mystery itself. It's about the connections we share, the mysteries that bind us, and the unspoken ways in which love and loyalty endure, even across the boundaries of time. And perhaps, most of all, it's a story about how sometimes our greatest discoveries come from the most unexpected places.